What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's last installment of the Daily Dose. Today is Friday, July 29th, 2022, and we had a wild finish to a wild week in the markets. And before I start, there's a lot I do have to say about this week. So this episode, since it's meant to be just like a shorter, informative episode, will be just kind of informative about what happened today. And then tomorrow, when I record the weekly wrap, that's going to be more analytical, kind of just my commentary on what I'm really thinking. And there's a lot to talk about. We'll get into the different types of commentary we're seeing. You have big-time executives saying that the bottom is in and that the 3660 that we were at was the bottom. And then you have some people who are saying that this is just a bear market rally and that we're going to get lower than that eventually here in the next couple of months. You have the U.S. saying that we're not in a recession, even though that we have 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. There's just all sorts of things that happened this week. We had the big earnings week. So that I'm going to get into all that in depth tomorrow, and today is just going to be informative about what happened today. So what did happen today? So we saw a continuation of the rally from yesterday, and a lot of that was not because earnings blew it out of the water, but because they weren't as bad, and the big companies weren't as bad as expected. Amazon and Apple had good earnings, and that kind of not good. They had good earnings, but not blowout earnings. They just Amazon missed, but there were some bright spots there, and Apple slightly beat, and the expectations were low anyways. So you did see slowing growth in Amazon and Apple, but it wasn't as bad as was what they had expected. So that's why you saw those stocks rally and kind of lead the whole market up higher. So that's what we saw today. Obviously, you had Roku really disappoint last night after the closing bell, and so they were down over 23% today. But for the most part, you can see Amazon was up over 10%, Apple was up over 3%. They really carried the markets higher. So we finished. This was the best week for the S&P 500 since I believe November 2020. Yeah, best since November 2020. It was the best week for the Nasdaq since April of 2020, and the best month for the Nasdaq since July 2020. So I think the reason why a lot of people are saying that the bottom is in is because you're kind of seeing big gains that reflect the bottom of the COVID crash. And I'll get into this tomorrow, but you can't really compare that crash with this one, and likewise you can't look at this rally and point to the rally that happened off the bottom of COVID, and it's not apples to apples. And I'll get into that tomorrow on why that's the case, but you just can't compare them and say that, oh, this X happened then and Y is happening now, so they equal each other. Like, you can't do it with this rally. So that's my opinion, and I'll get into that tomorrow, so be sure to listen for that. But I just want to say that. So and that's also to say that I'm not going to call a bottom. I had my favorite professor when I was in school. I was a financial management major, and he said that only fools basically try and call a market bottom or a market top. And that you really, most of the time, end up making a fool of yourself because no one can know whether it's the bottom or not. So I'm not saying that we did or didn't bottom, but I am saying you can't compare this rally to the rally that happened in April of 2020 and say that you can't look at that and say that this is the bottom. You just can't. So we'll get into that. But so the markets were higher. Obviously Amazon and Apple, that was what everybody was focusing on. And it kind of overshadowed Google's disappointing earnings as well. Some of the other bigger companies weren't really talked about after those two firms came out. So we won't read the rest. It's just about those individual companies, but I did want to talk a little bit about what I was seeing. If we take a look at the S&P 500 today, We shot out open over the gate. We gapped up higher, just bought the whole day. I mean, just strength the whole day. I mean, we're back over 4,100 on the S&P 500, which is just absurd from where we were just a little while ago. I do believe the S&P 500 is up like over 9%. Maybe it said that in here. Yeah, the S&P is up 9.2% during July. The Nasdaq's up 13%, like just absurd gains. So, while it does look like that bottom from March 2020, or from March and April 2020, I guess, you have to be careful because, one, you do get the biggest rallies like this in a bear market, and that's what some analysts are saying as well. And then you just can't compare. It's not the same situation at all now as it was in 2020. So let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin still looks strong for the time being. It's been really correlated with the Nasdaq, which is, as a Bitcoin holder and someone who's bullish on the long-term vision of what Bitcoin can do for the world, it does bother me that it moves with the Nasdaq and that the banks can have control over it like that. But it doesn't break my conviction in it at all. So anyways, kind of getting sidetracked there. Bitcoin still looks strong. I still expect it unless something happens in the Nasdaq and in the stock markets that we just see a complete crash. I do still expect it to move to this 28,000 and still go higher. As you can see, we have a series of higher lows and higher highs forming. So it's still looking bullish for the short term on Bitcoin. What happens after this zone, it's too early to tell. But I'm gonna wrap it right there. I don't want to say too much today because I do have a lot I want to get into tomorrow, and I don't want to kind of overlap. But thank you for joining me today. It's definitely been a crazy week in the stock markets, and I'm sure next week will be telling as to where we're going next. But be sure to tune in tomorrow. I'm gonna try and get that video out sometime in the afternoon, early afternoon. And we will see you all in that episode tomorrow.